Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, yeah, for this session, we want to discuss, about urban tourism, as uh, Elsa already mentioned, how urban tourism become or as a driver for culture and then economy and sustainability. So I would ask our panelists one by one, please go to the stage, starting from Prof. Windu, please. Please welcome Prof. Windu and give applause, please. So, yeah, I want to mention about her CV. Prof. Windu was appointed as a full professor from UGM in architecture and tourism planning in 2000 and 2007. And then she also served as a vice minister of education and culture for cultural affairs of Republic Indonesia in 2011 until 2014. Thank you for coming, Prof. Windu. And then I want to ask Pak Arbi to come to the stage from AirAsia Move. So Pak Arbi obtained his degree from Unsud, Purwokerto, and then get his MBA from ITB. Now he served as country head of AirAsia Move. So we will hear more about AirAsia Move, an apps from AirAsia and how it will connect it to urban tourism. And then the last one, I would ask Pak Gandhi from Transjakarta. Please give big applause to Pak Gandhi. Yes, Pak Gandhi also finished his degree in ITB and then get his master degree in Leeds United. And now his position in IT, head of IT division in Transjakarta. So yeah, thank you everyone. As far as we know that urban tourism from UNWTO mentioned about urban tourism. Urban tourism is a travel to and within cities driven by culture, business, events, food, and place-based experience. And Elsa already mentioned about Jakarta. I think it's almost the same with big city that we maybe all of us already know about Singapore and then and Hong Kong or Japan, that how they could become or how could they manage urban tourism very professional. So I think we would discuss more. And then one more about urban tourism brief, that urban tourism or city tourism identically with all activities that focus on experiencing of the unique culture, history, and densely populated urban areas that supported with the easier integrated transportation infrastructure. I think we will highlight about this, yeah, about integrated transportation infrastructures. I think this is very important. Then we will start to discuss with all of the panelists. I think I want to start it with Prof. Windu first, uh, Ibu. So as far as we know, I mean, your background as in architectural and master planning. So yeah, we want to hear more that we do believe that from the beginning, how the city already designed at the beginning. I mean, that's perfect scenario. But again, this is not perfect scenario. So in your opinion, how does architecture shape the way tourists experience and understand a city's identity? I mean, example for Jakarta or Jogja, beyond iconic landmarks. Yes, please.
Thank you. Selamat sore, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Referring to your question that how and what urban area, cities, architecture shape tourist experience. Yeah, I think urban tourism is one of the oldest form of tourism actually. When we look at you mentioned about the iconic thing, like Taj Mahal, like this pyramid, Giza, Eiffel Tower, uh, all iconic, tangible aspect of architecture is always attractive to tourists. That I think uh, architecture is was is still that become the prime motivation for people to travel. They always want to be associated with something that not just iconic, but something that historical, something that when you mention that, people understand right away that yes, associated with long historical values, and also like for example Parthenon in Athens, yeah, Greek, all those cities and urban areas and architecture. That's always the first thing that people, that the reason people to travel. So therefore, I'm not surprised that architecture is always become the prime motivation, yeah, for people to travel. Yes, of course, you have secondary motivation, tertiary motivation, but usually in the all type of tourism, urban area architecture is always the one that you want to be associated with. I've been there, I was there, therefore I'm tourist. And second one, I think tourism starts with city. It's always everywhere. You, especially foreign tourists. You fly into the airport, you fly into the city first, you stay in the hotel. Hotels always start in the city. Yes, of course, you have like village tourism, rural area, blah, 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 but start in the city because city has most of the infrastructure, complete infrastructure, nightlife, everything, you name it. Every city, they have the most developed infrastructures. So, and the third one, which is I like the title actually, that the urban tourism as a driver of culture, economy, and sustainability. I wanna say on that the driver of the economy, because architecture, which is related to city, they have the power of creating night economy. Rural area, they don't have this power. But city, you have the night economy. And actually, when you look at the economic impact of tourism, really lies on the whether you stay overnight or not. This is where the economic impact generated is actually when you stay into into the hotel, into bed, into the staying overnight is actually the key. And that happens in the city originally. Now, of course, it's spread out all over area. So I think this title of the theme of this talk is really very strategic and not just in the tangible aspect of the architecture, but usually the tangible architecture inspirable or cannot be separated with intangible values. So in the beautiful buildings lies beautiful history behind it. Important values of the community associated with that architecture. The one that tourists attracted to into architecture or urban area or old city, old town, up actually tangible aspect that have unspeakable with the tangible aspect. So
Mhm.
this is the one that I want to underline very important of urban tourism.
Mhm.
You mentioned about giving examples of Jakarta and Yogyakarta,
Yeah.
which is true. I think when we talk about urban tourism in Indonesia, Jakarta, of course, is because of the capital factor, but Yogyakarta also was the capital, the
Mm.
old capital. But Yogyakarta is old city, even the small city, but the Borobudur factor, you cannot ignore that.
Yeah.
I think if Borobudur was located somewhere in Labuan Bajo, then
Yeah.
Jogja will be not like this. So
Agree.
Borobudur definitely is factor. Why Jogja become important for urban tourism.
Mm.
Jakarta, of course, you have capital, you have all this museum. I say capital is always a culture district
Mhm.
to me. Yeah?
Yeah.
You have palace, art gallery, museum, blah blah blah. So that's tourists always say, oh, start with that.
Mm.
Start with the capital. Start with the culture district.
Yeah.
Then follow the second layer of
Mm.
the management
Mhm.
visitor
Okay.
management. For Yogyakarta is different though.
Yeah.
Because of not just because of the old capital, but because of the Borobudur, the royal palace
Mhm.
is also important. Especially now, because in the year of 2023, Yogyakarta was the world UNESCO
Yep.
World
Heritage.
Heritage City.
Mhm.
So now Indonesia we have 10 of them.
Yep.
Ya, Borobudur, Prambanan,
Mm.
Sangiran, the Java Man,
Mhm.
Komodo.
Yes.
Yeah, but the 10, the latest one is Yogyakarta as a World Heritage City.
Mm.
Since the year of 2023 until now, after the inscription by UNESCO, the foreign tourists increased 37%.
Okay.
So you like it or not, inscription by UNESCO definitely has become a promotion tool
Mhm.
all over the world.
Okay.
And with that, now Yogyakarta suddenly, because of the consequences as a World Heritage Site, then now the governor, the Sultan, they have all kind of extensive program touring down all the old squatter
Yeah.
that, now becoming the fourth city.
Mhm.
They rebuild. So if you go to Jogja now is the fort, as an old city, now slowly came back.
Yep.
So you can see that the axis, cosmological axis, that designated by UNESCO now becoming tourism attraction.
Okay.
You like it or not?
Interesting, Professor. Thank you. Yeah, I think we agree that the iconic, let's say iconic or landmark building or places will attract the tourists, of course. Now we move that. I still remember. Alistair already mentioned that 92% of tourists coming to Jakarta want to do business. So this is the interesting part. I mean, as a businessman that come to Jakarta, usually we also doing the tourism. And the interesting part that we have Pak Arbi from AirAsia Move, the apps that built by AirAsia. So we want to ask Pak Arbi, so from AirAsia Move, that how urban tourists today care about frictionless journeys. So again, maybe as a businessman,
Right.
we want to have I don't know, we want to try the tourism spot or zone in the city. So we want to know more that how can integrated digital travel platforms, I mean AirAsia Move, improve the end-to-end urban tourism experience from arrival to daily city mobility. Okay, time's yours, Pak.
All right. Thank you so much, Pa Alfonso.
Sure.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe a bit of introducing this company first, because maybe you all know AirAsia as an airline, correct? But basically, we are the evolving company that comes from, I think, around 2000. You know AirAsia.com, right? You know the app, maybe back then it's AirAsia Go, or maybe you ever heard AirAsia Super App, correct? Now we are evolving to AirAsia Move. So Tony Fernandez back then was like, the jargon is still that famous, right? Now everyone can fly, correct? But now I would say the trend is shifting, the trend is changing. The travelers want more. That's why only, I would say, bringing the travelers from destination A to B to C to D. It's just to make the jargon live. Now everyone can fly. But now everyone just not want to fly. They want to have the frictionless journey, correct? Maybe what has been described by Professor Windu is also uh, on point because you want to go to one destination, you want to see that beautiful landmarks, right? But now these travelers want more. They maybe around 10 years ago, our focus is just destination focus. The motivation is now changing. They want a frictionless journey. What would be the most, I would say, that sort of the highest top of mind of friction is basically the service that you want to go to one destination is fragmented. You need to buy the ticket of the airline in one channel, then you need to go to maybe hotel channel to buy the hotel, and maybe to Borobudur itself. Even sometimes you don't know where to go, then you just walk in, and then you have to go to the long queue, right? So AirAsia Group wants to have this frictionless journey happens. That's why now we have the name is AirAsia Move. I think the previous speaker also mentioned about the motivation, right? The motivation of people traveling. Alistair said that it is 8%. I think it was 8%. I think it's more than 8% right now. People coming to Jakarta, coming to Bandung, they basically want to do urban tourism. So it's very interesting how we also try to crack this data because we are the frontliners of capturing these travelers' data. So you imagine we have made billions of people flying since 2000, right? So we know how exactly the trend is really changing. So I think that's the homework, the challenge of maybe each of, I would say, tourism office, yeah, Prof. In every destination, in every city, they have to make their cities really interesting. So they can really keep up with what we call the changing of the trend of this urban tourism. And it's right, Pa Alfonso. It's really the driver. From our data, it's really the driver of the economy, culture, and sustainability. So every industry player must really keep up with this urban tourism. Now, what we have is this end-to-end journey on the screen. You might see how we try developing this app. So flight, I think is really straightforward. You can buy AirAsia tickets in AirAsia Move, but then you can also buy other 700 airline tickets in AirAsia Move, right? So don't worry if we don't have connectivity to, let's say, I don't know. Now we also fly to Kazakhs, right? But maybe in other countries that we don't fly, we have other airlines. You can buy in our app, right? And then what else? All the pre-journey, we have all the services, so you can really, every traveler can really prepare on the pre-book part. Then you can buy everything in one go, in one integrated platform. So 10 years ago, you might need one agent, right, to cooperate everything of your trip. But now by yourself, maybe millennials, Gen Z, right, then you can have all those in one app. That is this AirAsia Move. Even into the move ticks, right? Ticketings, any destinations, Borobudur ticket, everything can be bought in one app. So this is our effort. We want to make one integrated journey. It's seamless for every single traveler. Then hopefully this can also help the development of tourism, especially urban tourism, by this digital platform. That's it, Pak Alfonso.
Okay, thank you, Pak Arbi. I think it's interesting that we could discuss more about the Malaysian tourists that now they come. Yeah, I mean, as a urban tourism, they want to enjoy Jakarta or Bandung. I think AirAsia will have big opportunity for that.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Correct. So I think, sorry, a bit addition to
Yes,
that,
please.
right? I think one of good case is we work with the Ministry of Tourism of Indonesia. So Jakarta is becoming one of the target of inbound tourists, and what we are really targeting is Malaysian market, and this is the result. So as shown in the screen, right? Uh, Basically, there are millennials and Gen Z. 70% of the tourists that we capture are Gen Z and millennials, and then they fly to these cities. So I would say this would be urban tourism's centric that recently is getting hype in Indonesia. So around more than 5,000 users. And basically they are short trip kind of travelers, 2 to 3 nights. They do the average stays. So that's why they want to enjoy all the city views, right? Like Malaysians, well, maybe if you are aware, right? If you come to Grand Indonesia Mall on the weekend, you can hear a lot of Malaysian accents. So basically, they are indeed going to Jakarta, weekend getaway, going to these malls, maybe to Monas as well.
Yeah.
So even all the landmarks in the city, they want to enjoy from Malaysia to Jakarta. Well, from the data, around 70%, this is from the ministry saying that it's indeed Malaysians that coming to Jakarta for urban tourism. So that's very interesting. And accommodations, you want to see, right, the basket size is not that high, right? So they're really having a kind of weekend getaway kind of trip. Only 700,000, they can stay in the hotels that may be quite accessible in the city. Yeah, I think this is kind of data I can share.
Okay, thanks, Pak Arbi. So now from the platform, I think we should move that urban tourism need an integrated infrastructure facilities. So now here today, join us Pak Gandhi from Transjakarta. I think when we discuss about Jakarta again and again, I think yeah we need the integrated infrastructure, Pak Gandhi. So from Transjakarta perspective, yeah you could share how public transport is usually seen as a commuter service. How do you see Transjakarta role evolving as part of Jakarta's urban tourism infrastructure? Time's yours, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Alfonso. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think the statement is not wrong because Transjakarta itself, yes, we carry most of our passengers are commuters. We carry 1.4 million daily passengers, and looking at the network, we already cover 92% of Jakarta population, which means 9 out of 10 Jakartans can access the public transport right now. We are also the longest BRT corridor in the world. But beyond that, if we can have a look the next slide. Yeah, so we also we acknowledge there is also demand in urban tourism. So as you can see in the picture, this is our open top tour bus. This is similar like in London, hop on and hop off bus. We have 2 routes, the Jakarta Skylines and also the Jakarta Heritage. So you can, I highly recommend you try this, our service, because it's really interesting that you can experience the sunset and also the night view of Jakarta, starting from Bundaran Senayan and also in Post Blok in near the, I think near the Post Blok, yeah, in Post Blok. So, but beyond that, I think besides the bus, on the next slide, we also transforming our corridors and also our stops or our bus station. We co-create with entertainment, fashion, and transform our place into lifestyle destination. So as you can see, if you have a look our station in Bundaran HI, there is the second floor, so you can have activities at there and looking at the view of Jakarta. And also we held a music concert as well on our bus station on the second floor. And on annual event, we also held the Jakarta Sky Fun Run using our elevated BRT corridors. So to answer the questions, Transjakarta is not only about commuting, but also we acknowledge the demand in urban tourism and we cover that area as well,
Yes.
Pak Alfonso. Thank you.
Yeah. So, how many passengers that Transjakarta usually services in a day, in one day?
1.4 million
1.4 million.
million daily passengers.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's not easy, but again, I mean, we could learn from the other big city, Pak Gandhi, how they could give a perfect, I mean, perfect services. I mean, from the infrastructure. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, for the audience, if you have any question, please you can send it to Slido, yeah, so we could answer the question. Okay. The next session, we still have three questions, but again, for we should consider it about the time. I understand, Professor. Usually, you need maybe minimum 2 hours to give the lecture, but in this session, maybe each of you, I think each of you still have 2 minutes, yeah, to answer the question. Uh, Professor Windu, yeah, after the discussion, yeah, let's say I mean, when the city already succeed to attract the tourists, sometimes it could be advantage or maybe disadvantage, because again, yeah, many cities struggle between attracting tourists and protecting residents' quality of life. So, from an architectural and urban design perspective, how can this balance be achieved, Professor?
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Uh, I think, you know, uh, sometimes when you see like traffic jam, so many people, also all the warungs, yeah, all the kaki lima, suddenly you street right in front of you full of those kaki lima and stuff. You at the same time you like it, but also uh, problem with privacy, traffic jams, smells, or garbage, all those usual problems. So how do we balance that? I think managing carrying capacity is really the key answer. It's not just economic, but also environment, socio culture,
Yeah.
institution. Sometimes they just don't know what to deal with this. All the government, local government, central government, how to deal with that.
Yeah.
So and also usually tourism is always urban tourism associated with something that modern life, something that while community they want to have privacy, they want to have you know they they don't want their privacy to be invaded by all this over carrying capacity thing. But then, how do we go about that? I think this is where the role of government play very important role. They have regulation, they have power to managing the carrying capacity, and they have power to also educating community. Because don't forget, community has the power to adapt. Yeah, in the beginning maybe oh no no no, but uh, in the process they say oh I kind of like it, so this always you know uh, I think we know that tourism brings problem but also bring benefits, that community likes it. So well, I think I read Alistair's
Yeah,
question
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
there,
you can
which
answer
is very
this also.
similar, about the importance of architecture. How do we preserve the important buildings, like in Braga, like in Malioboro, like I think almost I believe that every city has all part of the city, all charm of the city, and that should be preserved. Yeah, how do we go about that? Regulation again. This is government has power to do that. Yeah. Regulated the building, how to rebuild the. I I think so recently the president's they have policy of gentengisasi. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I really like that. Maybe it's kind of How do we go there? How do we think? How do we select houses that should be the roof change into genteng, blah, blah, blah. I think I like that. We have so much potential in terms of local character, yeah, like orange style, you know, and we have so much production also in the village. But why we use all those metals so ugly and sometimes create all the glare, yeah, and this is against the preservation principles, yeah. Even though the glareness, the one that uh, created by the materials, the building materials.
Okay.
You have to be really careful
Mhm.
in order to maintain the character, in order to maintain the identity.
Yeah.
And government play a very important role in
Mhm.
this.
Of course.
You know? So I think has to be first has to be the government,
Sure.
and then you educate the community.
Mm.
Slowly they will understand the importance that the tourists they come because of you preserve the old building, you
Yep.
preserve the old kampong, you know, all the
Mm,
small alleys in the kampong. That's actually interesting.
Mhm.
Maybe the community, yeah, interesting for you, not for me, you know, like kind of
Exactly.
thing. So we have to listen to what actually
Mhm.
the mostly it means, yeah,
Yeah.
preservation
Okay.
from the point of view of the community.
Sure, Professor. Interesting. I hope that answer your question, Alistair. Okay, thank you, Professor. Yeah, I think we agree that we want to highlight the carrying capacity for the second question, Professor. I mean that's the win-win solution between the tourists and the residents. Okay, we move to next question. I think there's also a question. I think that's sweet with Pak Arbi and Pak Gandhi. Yeah. But before that, I want to share you the question first. That AirAsia Move sits on massive travel data. How can data and AI be used to help cities manage tourist flows, reduce congestion, and support sustainable urban tourism? And also answer that question, Pak, from the audience. And I think 2 minutes, if possible.
2
Thank you.
minutes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Thank you, Paul. I think you're right. This is quite connected with the answer of your question, right? Because I would 100% agree that data is something that is very rich. It's a huge asset, especially for us as the digital platform, which basically it drives what basically the decision making we want to make, what kind of driver, as per question as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that could increase the urban tourism, which the answer as well, we don't want it's a cheap price.
Yeah.
We also doesn't want a cheap price, right? So we want to really have the great experience, the frictionless journey that this traveler would want. So in AirAsia Move, we collect all the data, then we have the machine to run the AI to really read the demographics, the seasonality, the length of stay, the whole behavior of the traveler, which basically this can be a weapon to that. Not really a weapon. Weapon is what not so good
Yeah.
term, right? But then more like I would say the driver to then we really trigger every single traveler to entice and acknowledge, I mean, sort of educate what kind of destination that is maybe they don't know in Bandung. But since we know their behavior, we can really do a lot of like CRM works to them, or maybe we can also do our social media engagement to then promote all these destinations, right?
Yeah.
So I believe this, especially when we are targeting like Gen Z and millennials, their curiosity is very high.
Yep.
So if they don't know things and then we promote with our digital platform, understand their behaviors using our AI, even we can make digital marketing ads only in less than a day, only in hours by the helping of AI. So by that kind of approach, I believe it would be
Agree.
quite the driver for the urban tourism increment.
Sure. Thank you, Pak. Yeah, because of the times. Yeah, very yeah. We move to Pak Gandhi for the last question, and maybe you could answer also from the audience question. So how can reliable and accessible public transport encourage tourists to shift from private vehicle to low carbon mobility, and what impact does this have on urban sustainability, Pak Gandhi?
Thank you, Pak Alfonso.
Yes.
I think from the perspective of urban tourists, the best way to experience a city, I think, is by walking and also public transport. So you will really experience that city. So from Transjakarta point of view, there are at least two things that we think it is crucial to be continuously developed. The first one is PIS, Passenger Information System. So we have both the static and also the dynamic PIS in our stations. But beyond that, we also develop the Transjakarta apps that you can download in Play Store or iOS store. So basically, you can plan your journey there. You can track your bus, see all of our buses because all of our buses are already installed with GPS. And then I think what's important, the next one is about how we can create more accuracy in terms of our data. So it is useless if a passenger see the piece but the bus is not coming, but the route is not similar, the same with the existing bus. And also we also collaborate with Google Maps as well. So we shared our API because I think not, especially the foreigners, they don't directly know our app, so they can just open the Google Maps and our bus is also on the maps. The second one is about payment. So we gradually integrate our payment currently with the existing source of fund in Indonesia, but we want to extend that internationally as well with Visa, Mastercard.
Yep.
So foreign tourists, especially,
Yep.
they can directly, use our service. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, we hope, Pak, for Jakarta especially, and also the other big city in Indonesia. So I think because the time very limited, we still have about 3 minutes. So I want from each of the panelists, Professor, Pak Gandhi and Pak Arbi, each of you please give the final statement, related to our topic today, that urban tourism as a driver for culture, economic, and sustainability. Please, Prof. 1 minute. It's up to you.
I don't need
Thank
just
you.
12 minutes is enough.
Sure.
Well, I totally agree with the title, and I think that we should take it seriously about the potential of urban tourism in Indonesia. And I think also great investment on that. And I think government should make a good policy
Yep.
on how to develop urban tourism in Indonesia.
Yep.
And last one, I think sustainability is not anymore enough.
Yep.
I think we should move into how to create value added, which is regenerate values. So I think should be more rather than sustainability only. We should move into the level of regenerate tourism or regenerative tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Next, Pak.
Yeah, I think my key statement would be the dream of AirAsia Move to make the frictionless journey happens. We will always support any mobility of travelers. Even we will do all integration we need, maybe with Transjakarta soon.
Sure.
Just
You
to really
should.
create
Both
the
of you.
integration.
That's good.
So to the high note that we just not want people just fly. We want to make them have a very pleasant journey flying with any airline even. Then we are as OTA, we can really support this frictionless journey.
Thanks, Pak. Next, please.
Yeah, last 1 minute. I think the demand of urban tourism is very huge, especially in big cities like Jakarta. And Transjakarta has the potential because we have more than 90% coverage. And what we are doing right now is harnessing the technology to cover not only the local tourists but also the international tourists.
Yep.
And I think in a forum like this, it's really beneficial for institution like Transjakarta to have more connection with other institution.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Thank you, Pak Gandhi. Yeah, so I think because again the time is very limited, so yeah, this is coming from us. So again, please give big applause to Prof. Windu from UGM, Pak Arbi from AirAsia Move, and Pak Gandhi from Transjakarta. So thank you everyone.